Okay, with this one this is going to be the entire lesson for finding zeros of a polynomial, and this is more of an advanced lesson for finding these zeros. We're going to incorporate just about everything that we've learned in this chapter thus far to try to help us to solve some of these equations. These can be very, very complicated equations, but hopefully this video will help. You can review some of the problems, get a little bit more practice with these. So today what we're going to be working with is solving an equation using the calculator and synthetic division. We have to we'll talk about finding a zero as the remainder, as well as talk about what a bounce is on a particular graph. We'll kind of go through those as we go throughout. First, I want you to get a little bit of practice. At this point, you should know how to solve these. If you're unsure, I'll give you a slight hint, and that is to factor out the greatest common factor first, then see what you can do with the rest. So I'd like you to solve both of these. I'd like you to push pause on the video now. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Check your answer here. You should be able to do these fairly regularly, fairly easily. If you're struggling with these, I do have some other videos. Specifically, there's 4.1, finding zeros of a polynomial. I would go back and review that one before you go even any further into this, because you're going to need to know these basics before we move on. All right, here is another one. You should be able to know how to do this one at this point. So I want you to push pause on the video now. Work through this one. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Check your answer here. There should be three different answers. There are actually two zeros here, 0, 0, 2, 8. If you wrote that down, that's fine, because there are actually two zeros here. B squared equals 0. That means there are two zeros here. All right. Now, if we look at this graph here, and this is going to become important, we want to see where it's going to cross the x-axis. And if we look right here, it crosses right here at 2. This is positive 2, 0. Over here is positive 8, 0. So we've got a 2 and an 8. There's where our 2 and our 8 come in right here. And right here at 0, we have it bouncing. These are what we're talking about with the bounce. And the bounce means that we have at least 2 of them, whatever that unit is, whatever that number is. In this case, it's 0. It means we have at least 2 zeros. Could be that we have more, but if you plan on it always being a 2 right now, that's probably safe for the moment. And then as you go throughout your process, you may find that you have a couple more, but it won't be too bad. But for right now, just plan on there being 2 of them. Just know that there can be more. It can be 4, it can be 6. But for right now, just 2. Okay, we have 2 zeros here, we have a 2, and we have an 8. So this bounce indicates there are 2 of them. All right, we know how to do this one already. I'd like you to push pause on the video now. Go ahead and solve this one. After you've obtained your answers, come back and push play. Check your answer on this one. We have plus or minus 1, plus or minus 3. All right, now what we want to do is we want to graph these and view what this looks like on the graph. So let me see if I can pull in my graph here. Let's escape out of this. Pull up my graph. Here we go. Okay, so let's bring in this graph here. All right, I just want to graph it. To graph it, I'm going to hit Tab, and I'm going to graph this one here, x to the 4th. So we're going to go x to the 4th minus 10x squared minus 10x squared plus 9. Then I'm just going to hit enter. This will graph it. Now, if I look right here, I have all of my points here where it crosses that x-axis. If I'm not sure of what point that is, I can always go to Menu, Analyze Graph, 0. That's what we're looking for, are zeros. Okay, now I just kind of click here on one side, drag it. As soon as I drag it, it pops up with that 0. There's my first 0, negative 3, 0, and you can see that over here, plus or minus 3. And I'll do that for each one. I can go in here and I go Menu, Analyze Graph, zeros. I can do it for the next one. Click it, drag it past. As soon as I drag it past, it pops up. Here's the next one, negative 1. I've got negative 3 and negative 1. If I continue to do that, I'd have a positive 1 and a positive 3 over here. So that's what we're talking about when we're saying finding zeros, is we can graph these, identify where those zeros are, where it crosses that x-axis, and that will clue us into what some of the answers are. we're going to use that knowledge as we progress here. So here's the order in which we should do these. When we're solving a polynomial, the very first thing we need to do is we need to graph it. Plug it into your ti-nspire and graph it. Now, after you graph it, we're trying to find the value for all rational roots. What that basically means is we're trying to find those zeros. We're trying to find where it crosses that x-axis, just like we did with our ti-nspire. After we do that, we're going to take whatever the answers were and use synthetic division to simplify what we have left. See what's left of our polynomial. After we've obtained what's left, then we're going to solve the remaining equation. This sounds like quite a bit, and it is. This is a very in-depth process to find these. Here's one. We're going to do this one first. Okay, if we're wanting to graph this one, we can plug this into our graph. If we plug it into our graph, we'll pull it up, and it gives us a graph that looks something like this. Okay, so it looks like here, if you wanted to, you can plug this into your ti-nspire. It's an easy way to do it. I've just got this to make it a little bit easier. Looks like I have a 1 here. Now it bounces. That means there are actually 2 1s here. And over here it looks like I have a -2. And your graph may look different than mine depending on what your window settings are, but that's fine. So I've got a -2 here. I know that's an answer, and I've got 2 1s. I know those are answers. So my zeros in this case are I've got a -2, +1. So my zeros, I've got -2 and a double 1. Double because it bounces. Okay, this is going to become important. Now what we're going to do is use synthetic division. Bounces twice, there you go. We're going to use synthetic division to simplify this. And we can use any one of these. I can start with -2, that's fine. I can start with 1, that's fine. Either one, it really doesn't matter. I wanted to kind of keep it simple, so I decided to start with 1. So remember with synthetic division, I do the 1, then I draw the box. Now what I'm going to do is write down each coefficient. I've got a 1 here, I've got a 1 here, a 2, a -12, and an 8. The only thing is I do actually have an x to the 4th in here. It's not listed, so that's going to be a 0. I need to make sure to write that in. So I do that here, and you'll see the 0 here. This is my coefficient here. This is my x to the 4th is 0. This one's a 1, 2, -12, 8. I do synthetic division now. Now, in order to save some time, I'm going to go ahead and do this one on out just really quick. Here's my synthetic division. Just a quick reminder, what we do is we bring down our first term. Then we multiply these two. 1 times 1 gives me 1. Then I combine these two. Then I multiply. 1 times 1 gives me 1. I add these two. This gives me 2. 1 times 2 gives me 2. And I keep going all the way down. The key is to try to get a 0 here as your remainder. Remember, this one is your remainder. This one is your linear term. This one's just the number. This one has an x, x squared, x cubed, x to the 4th. If you need some more help on that, go back to, I have one on synthetic division. A unit on it or a video on it, go back and watch that one. Okay, so it's important that we have a 0 remainder. If we have a 0 remainder, that means it goes in evenly. That means we did this right. We do have a 1 here. Well, actually, we have 2 1s. We have a double 1. So now we can take out another 1. So let's first write this one back. Now remember, I had 0 remainder. This is my linear, or excuse me, this is my constant. This is my linear term, squared, cubed, to the 4th power. I know that this is a 1. Here's where I'm getting this. These are all my coefficients here, all the way down. Now again, I have a 1 here that I can take out again. This is another factor of mine is 1. So I put my 1 on the outside, and I'm going to go through and write down all my coefficients. This will be 1, 1, 2, 4, -8. So I write down all of those, and I do synthetic division again on this one. I'm trying to just reduce this one. You see, I started with x to the 5th power. I've reduced it down to x to the 4th power. After this one, it will drop down to x to the 3rd power, and we'll keep using that. We'll keep going down. All right, so again, I do synthetic division on this one. Bring it all the way across. You'll notice that I have another 0 remainder, which means that's fantastic. I do indeed have 2 1s here. All right, now what I'm going to do is I convert this one back to this long one. Now, it can save some time instead of converting that one back. You know, here's my constant, my linear term, x squared, x cubed. I can save some time because the next step is going to be writing down each of the coefficients, 1, 2, 4, 8. So I can write all those down underneath here again, but really I already have that written right here. So to save myself a little bit of time, I'm just going to use this one that's already written. If you don't want to and you want to take the extra step, that's fine. It won't hurt you. Now I'm going to do a -2. Where that -2 came from is right here. I identified that that was one of my zeros, was a -2. So now I'm going to do synthetic division again with a -2. Hopefully this one should turn out to be a 0 remainder as well. That means I'm doing it right. So I do synthetic division on this one. I end up with a 0 remainder as well. That worked out really nice. This one is my constant, 4. My x term, 0x's, and then x squared. So I've got x squared plus 0x plus 4. Of course, we don't write it like this. We don't write 0x. So this is just x squared plus 4. Now I can solve this one. X squared plus 4 equals 0. So now all I'm going to do is solve it. I'll move my 4 over to the other side. I've got x squared equals -4. I take the square root of both sides. I find out that x equals 2i, plus or minus 2i. Okay, so now I should have 5 answers on this. That's what my 5 indicates. One answer is 1, another one is 1, -2, and then plus or minus 2i's. Those are my 5 answers. Now I just need to write them. So I've got -2, 1, plus or minus 2i. Now it looks like we only have 4 answers here. 2, 1, and then plus or minus 2i. That's only 4 answers. Of course, the 1, we have 2 of those. You don't typically write it. It's just very redundant if you do that. All right, so that's quite a bit to that one. So the very first step is first to graph it. After you graph it, identify where all those zeros are. Write those down real quick. Write those off to the side. Then we're going to use synthetic division to try to reduce this down just as far as we possibly can. All right, then we're going to solve it with what's left. That should give us our total answers here. All right, I would like you to go ahead and try this one. Yeah, try this one. I'll give you a hint. There is a double 3 there. But graph it, get the experience of that. Go through that now. Push pause on the video now. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Okay, so there are quite a bit to that one. Hopefully you should have seen it bounce right at +3. So again, I write my 3 down, then I do my synthetic division. With what I have left, this ended up being a bounce right there. That means I have 2 of them, so I'm going to do 3 again. If it doesn't have a bounce and just go straight through, we'll only do it once. Do my synthetic division again, and I end up with almost the same type of scenario here as I had on the last one, plus or minus 2i. So these are my 2 answers on this one. All right, let's get some more practice on this. I want you to try both of these. You're going to need to graph them first. After you graph them and identified where those zeros are, then you can plug them back in and do synthetic division to reduce it. After you've done the synthetic division, you're going to end up with an equation that you can try to solve. So push pause on the video now, and then go ahead and try these 2 after you've obtained both answers. Come back and push play. Check your answers here. So this one, both of these 2 were very similar to ones that we did in the past. We're going to spice it up a little bit more on the next one. But hopefully you're starting to get some of the feel for it. If you need to, pause the video and see where you might have made an error, if you did make any at all. I want you to try these 2 now. So push pause on the video now. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Check your answer on number 1 here. Number 1 is very similar to what we've done in the past. There was only 1. It went right through -2. So by the time you back out the -2, you're just left with a quadratic. You can solve that one. We're done. The second one here that we've got, I wanted to go through it with you. After you take out the 3, you end up with this one here. Unfortunately, on this one, I don't have any other ones that I could graph to find out anything else to reduce it any further. So I'm just left with this one. Well, from here, we got to look and see if we can factor it. Unfortunately, on this one, we cannot factor it. Of course, if we could factor it, it would have showed up on our graph. So that's one indication. But now what we need to do is start plugging this one into the quadratic formula. So I know my a value, I know my b value, and my c value. A, again, is the one in front of the x squared. B is the one in front of just the x. And c is just the constant. That's just the number. Now I take and I plugged it into my quadratic formula and reduce it down just as far as I possibly can with this. I end up with a square root of -4. Now we know that the square root of -4 is 2i. Then we have to take this here and see if there's any way that we can reduce it. A number goes into all 3 of those. Some of you like to separate the 2 first. That's fine. You know, this one's plus, this one's minus. Either way you want to do it is fine. But we need to find a number that goes into all 3. 2 goes into all 3, so I can reduce that down further. I end up with 2 plus or minus I. Now we can't forget this 3. This 3 was our original one. We know that is one of our answers here. So So these are our three answers here. So sometimes you're going to get it and you're going to have to plug it into the quadratic formula. And sometimes you do get an imaginary number, and that's okay. That's part of the process. Okay, so I'd like you to try these two. Push pause on the video now. After you've obtained your answer, come back and push play. Check your answers here. You'll notice on the first one was kind of nice for us. We didn't have to plug it into any quadratic formula. You didn't end up with the square root plus or minus I square root of 2. The second one you did have to plug into the quadratic formula. So hopefully you're starting to get more and more practice here. It is a process, but it's not, after you get more practice with it, it really ends up being not too bad. All right, now on this one, I'm going to give the whole screen only because there's a lot of work on this one. But go ahead and push pause on the video now. Go through, work out the solutions. After you've obtained all your solutions, come back and push play. Check your answer here. Again, this one was just another quadratic. It wasn't a whole number. It was just a square root of 15, so it was not a rational number. So we just leave it like this. We do not want to leave it as a decimal. We like to keep it as an exact answer. A radical is an exact answer, so that's just fine. Leave it just like that. Okay, and it looks like these will be probably the last ones that we end up doing. Just want to keep the video a little bit shorter, so there's quite a bit to these. But go ahead and push pause now. Go through all your process here, and after you've obtained your answers, come back and push play. Check your answers here. And it was a little bit weird, but it was accurate. All of these ended up being the same answers. This one was just happened twice. Plus or minus I and plus or minus I occurred twice. But they both ended up being the same answer. On this particular one here, hopefully you could identify with this one that we needed to factor it. And to factor it, we've done those before. Factoring, we are going to use the same process as we did before, two numbers that multiply together to give us 1, but add together to give us 2. That was 1 and 1. It could not be x plus 1 because that wouldn't work to give us x to the 4th. It had to have been x squared. That was the only real difference there. Well, this concludes this video. If you'd like to, you can go back in and watch it several times. Get a little bit more practice on maybe the ones that you missed. And if you need to, I do have some other individual videos of each individual problem throughout as well.